each other and with life are predicated in something that doesn't, like one of those wind things, just left and right, flapping back and forth, so we could become a constant kind of man or woman. And that's all I talk about. How can we as men and women begin to use the life that we have while it's going on, instead of, and again, I'll ask you, I do like feedback. If I see you moving your head from time to time, I know you're still breathing. How many times is it after I've had the explosion, after I've said the unkind words, after I've lost my patience, after I relive another moment that I wish I didn't relive, revisiting things that as I revisit them, I'm the victim of my own attention returning to the past? How many times after that have we said, oh God, that's it, I want to let go of that? Yes or no? Let me see some hands. Yeah. This would be an aerobics class if nothing else for you. And yet, and you're not alone. I want you to understand that there's not one person in the room, including the speaker, that this doesn't apply to. And yet every time, I wish I wasn't like that. I wish I didn't have to go through this. I wish I had a better relationship with my mother, my father, my brothers, my sisters. In spite of every wish that follows the unpleasant encounter, our consciousness doesn't change. And we believe that the moment of our regret proves that somehow or other we really want to be different. And maybe there is a part of us that really does want to be different. But what follows the regret isn't a change in our consciousness. What follows the regret is another set of explanations or justifications for why we said and did what we did. And nothing changes at all. So here we go. You'll see I don't pull punches. How many of you can understand, if you're really here to learn about letting go, it's because you have not been able to do so far? Yes or no? Let me see the hands. Because there's no point in lying. If you're going to tell yourself lies, this is the wrong place for you to be in. Because I like to say the way it is, and I hope that men and women want to hear it the way that it is. Do you want to hear the way it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens? Unwanted moment. Like that, what happens in an unwanted moment? Suddenly we're seized by, ultimately, a form of resistance to that moment we don't recognize. But on the heels of the resistance, and actually inseparable from it, are the negative reactions. So how many of you ever get negative? He smiles. We get negative at the drop of a hat. And we can't get negative unless something in us has resisted the moment. No resistance, no negativity. They are tied to each other. Please work with me. Have you ever seen a moment where you got negative that wasn't preceded by someone or something doing that which aggravates you? So the negative reaction follows this resistance, yes or no? Yes. I'm going to keep you involved. What happens that keeps going on and on and on, so that instead of just the 19th nervous breakdown, we're on to our 2000th nervous breakdown, and hoping somehow or other that we're going to still have some idea or thought that's going to save us from what ultimately, as you will see, isn't the world that's gone crazy. It has. Isn't the people around us that are angry or mean or bitter, because they are, aren't we? Yes or no? Come on.
Yes.
It's that we don't understand ourselves. We don't understand our own consciousness. We become complicit with a world that ensures us, if we just have this religious affiliation, or this, we follow this guru, or we listen to this person speak who does so eloquently, if we do our puja, our meditation, our prayer sessions, if we just do that faithfully, somehow or other we'll be set free. And if one thing should be clear to you at this point, is that we are not being set free by these practices. Because without understanding it, these practices that we follow by and large are because they give us a momentary sense of ourselves as being someone who isn't negative, who doesn't have a problem with the past. So I want to take all of this apart with you, if you'll let me, so that we can begin to have an understanding. Last part before I get into what we're going to work on. What good is it for any of us, after we have been the unkind, unpleasant person, to then judge ourselves for having been unkind, or worse, judge someone or something else for what we say this is the big word today, isn't it? How many of you know the word triggered? God almighty. You know why the word triggered was invented? Because people don't know what to do with the pain they're in prior to the moment of saying somebody made me shoot my mouth off. The fact of the matter is we're triggered because we're loaded with pain. We're loaded with misunderstanding. We're loaded with a past that has a weight. And we don't know what to do with the weight because we keep blaming the person or the past instead of understanding the only weight the past has is that I keep picking it up and putting it on my shoulders. But I don't know I'm doing that. So the way that we let go involves something that is very unpleasant for most human beings. The way we learn to let go is we discover that it is virtually impossible to let go with one hand and hold on with the other. It is impossible to let go with one hand, you know this, and without knowing it, hold on with the other. So, I'll dial it back for a moment. Pick up your piece of paper on your chair if you would. And what we're going to do, think of the thing that irritates you more than anyone or anything else. We don't have to go that far, do we? Something in my past, a problem, an addiction, a habit, something that troubles you. That's what this piece of paper represents. Now, what would you like to do with that piece of paper? Let's start by crumpling it up. Crumple that bad dog. Now, follow me. I have my problem, my pain, in my hand. Yes? Yes or no? Is it in your hand? Now, if I do this, what happens to that problem? Just do it. Go ahead. This man here, he threw it in his other hand. He's close, but he doesn't know it. So, I mean, really, if I do that, where is it? Where's my problem? It's not with me anymore, is it? Yes or no? And yet, and I love saying this, somehow this little piece of paper must have tiny little arms and tiny little legs, and it must follow me and crawl up my leg and get back into my hand. Because no sooner do I say I don't want this, than I'm revisiting it and reliving it. True or not, out loud?
True.
Good. An A for all of you so far. Now, how in the name of God does a pain, a problem, a suffering, a past, how something that I say I want nothing to do with this, how does it get back into my heart and into my mind? Anybody want to venture a guess?
Aliens.
Something in me picks it up. I say, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to relive that again. It's bitter the first time. Why would I keep drinking from that same cup? And yet, all I do is find myself with that same cup in my hand, dripping, drinking the dregs of some past experience. And then, this is the craziest thing. I know that's politically incorrect, but I don't care. Is that I then think to myself, oh, that person, this situation, that problem, and I'm the one who, without knowing it, has picked up the cup of the past and is drinking from it, and as I have the pain of revisiting the past, I blame the person or the situation that's not even there anymore. How many of you have relationships with people they're not even in a body anymore, and they're still bothering you? Why? Honest to God, why? And honest to God, why isn't a man or woman gets to a point in their life where they reincarnate and reincarnate and reincarnate the consciousness responsible for doing what? For not just picking it back up, but clinging to it. This is where the spiritual rubber meets the road, because the last thing that any of us want to even suspect is true is that there is something in us that is actually carrying around something that it does not want to let go of, because it is part and parcel with the personality, with my experience, and my identity it depends upon reliving the very moment that I say I wish I didn't have to relive. My sense of self is established in a relationship with something from my past, could be 1 minute, could be 2,000 years ago. And when the moment comes and that consciousness meets someone, sees something, looks at an event, hears the news, isn't it strange that out of the clear blue sky, all of a sudden, I'm captured by something that is telling me, oh boy, then, and then I spend the rest of the day, or God willing, my life, trying to figure out how do I let go of this problem, failing to see I can't let go of something without understanding something in me doesn't want to live without the pain. I told you, I'm going to say things to you that you may not have heard before, but it's a fact. If you have any logic at all, you can't argue the point. If I'm suffering, my mind has gone back into a memory, an image, a belief, and in revisiting the content of itself, then looks at what it visits and goes, oh, I hate that. Oh, I don't want to go through that. Oh, I don't want to be there. And where am I in that moment? I am identified with a movement of my own mind that I don't see and that I don't believe could possibly be true, because as I'm sitting here wishing I wasn't doing that, I believe the me that doesn't want to be doing that is actually me, when the fact is something in me picked up the moment, picked up and relived the event. Yes or no?
Yes.
So we need, if we want to change, and that's the other thing. You know the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I mean, I've been talking for well into, I'm 75. I've been talking for over 45 years. You have to get to a point, and God willing it's happened to you, and it doesn't matter at what point, where you understand, if something significant doesn't change in my consciousness, then there is no chance that the experience I have that is a reflection of that consciousness is ever going to change. So that now my mind is not directed anymore on what it says is the problem, because at least I suspect that a big portion of the problem has something to do with a preference in myself I have no idea is there. Would you ever think to yourself you have a preference to suffer?
No.
Would you? No, I mean, this gentleman that caught his own thing immediately asked, we do. We actually don't see it though, and that's why it's confounding for us, that we don't recognize that's true. Transition. Nice deep breath. If what I'm saying is true, can you see me when I lean down? Is it all right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're got all kind of stuff going here. If it's what I've said is true, the only way in which I'm ever going to even approximate the beginning of not just enlightened living, but a life where, because I am present and aware of my own consciousness, that in the awareness of not just my mind, because the mind lies. It's so used to talking to itself. And boring too, isn't it mostly? Yada, 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 yada. And the heart, separated from the mind, caught up in some kind of an emotional movement, and then the mind follows and explains what all that's emotion about. And then God help us, look at our bodies. How do we get to the point where we're debilitated, not because of an absence of food by the grace of God, you and I, but debilitated with the constant conflict of a mind that is set against itself and has no idea it's doing that. So it tears the body down. The body, the mind, and the heart, they all have to work together. They have to be present at the same time. You will see, if you've heard anything when I'm done with this talk, that when something happens, I don't even know I'm in a body. Have you ever picked up a hot skillet? Anybody? Please, hands, yes or no? Now, when you pick up a hot skillet, do you think to yourself, well, I wonder what I've picked up now?
No.
No, your body has an intelligence, doesn't it? And it drops the skillet immediately and calls the skillet stupid. That's how we roll. It's a phenomenon. This dumb skillet. Stupid hammer, look at my thumb. We need a completely new understanding of who we are, what we're doing here on this planet, and how, through that new understanding, we can begin to enter into a new kind of paradigm where instead of letting pain tell us who we are and what to do, we're present enough to this interior unseen conflict in ourselves that when the pain starts talking to us, we recognize it. We don't see pain when it's talking to us because the pain promises a solution to itself, doesn't it? Anytime you're in pain, the pain is telling you, here's what you have to do. Here's where you have to go. This is what's necessary. And what does it do? It's always pointing to something outside of us, in the world, in some relationship, and that if we could just get that finally straightened out, we'd be on the straight and narrow ourselves. Except there's only one problem with that approach, isn't there? Who knows what the problem is? Out loud. It doesn't work. That's a big problem. The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So how many of you qualify? I'm not afraid to say it. I'm nuttier than a fruitcake. A new paradigm. Now, I could take 10 minutes to try to get to a simple point, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to read to you, ever so briefly, a certain passage by a gentleman, Teilhard de Chardin. He was a French philosopher, brilliant mind. This is what he said. You are not a human being in search of a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being immersed in a human experience. You are not a human being in search of a spiritual experience. Think about this. I'm going to have run out of time. There's no question about it. I'm always looking for a spiritual experience. I'm looking to be saved. And what do I want to be saved from? The terrible people in my life. Or maybe I'm a drug addict and I blame all of the things that I've done to myself on a past that didn't give me the break I needed, and that's why I am the way. No, I am a human being who doesn't know that he is in this world to understand a direct relationship with whatever the word is you want, with the divine, with Christ. The words don't matter to me. The bottom line is that we are all the time walking around in search of a spiritual experience to get rid of the pain of being a human being, when our real pain is because we are a spiritual being looking for ourselves in a world that can't give us anything that we actually want. And it can't, because if it could, my God, we're all ages in this room. If I could have been completed and satisfied through what the world was going to give me, through my ideas of what was required to be a whole human being, I'd already be walking on water. But I'm not. Instead, I'm angry when it rains. I'm upset if someone doesn't approve of me. And if I weren't a different kind of man, looking at some of you looking at me with your faces, I'd leave the room. Why? Because we think our life depends on what's going on around us. Our life has nothing to do with what's going on around us other than the proper understanding of it as a kind of a mirror in which we can see and understand this innate spiritual human experience that we're having. So you get that idea, yes? Yeah. Wouldn't that be okay, just for a split second, I don't have a magic wand, but for a moment we're just going to think to ourselves, I wonder what it would be like if I actually understood that I am a spiritual being in a world of humans, creation, and the reason that I'm here is to not learn about the world per se in terms of giving myself what I need to be special. I'm here to learn through this world something about my own divine nature, about the God that gave me this body and this life, about the truth that placed me where it does moment to moment, so that in my relationship with whatever it is, I don't walk away a more angry, bitter human being. I walk away a man or a woman with new understanding because the paradigm says the purpose of our relationship is this process of discovery and our relationship to the divine that makes it possible. Still with me? I'm going to read. Ordinarily it would go up on a big screen when I'm talking, and eventually if I come and speak more, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to, if any of you would like to see me again, I don't know. Ordinarily, we have a key lesson. We put it up on the screen. But I'm going to read to you the key lesson. The people online watching, they'll see it. You just have to listen to it. And by the way, this will be put up, won't it?
Yes.
I talk for free 3 times a week. There's nothing to join. I don't want one thing from any of you. And all of the talks are recorded, videoed, and they go up on my website. It costs nothing to join. To participate in. And you can watch this talk if you want to watch this talk. And then you can see the key lesson that I'm about to read to you. Please listen carefully. Unwanted moments in life don't mark the end of our path through it, let alone what we have yet to discover during our earthly journey. To the contrary, they are actually the revelation and realization of an old part of us that has outlived its usefulness and that is being asked by the divine to give itself up. Why? So that from its seed something new might be born within us and we within that life-giving light that has revealed it. A completely different understanding of those moments, and isn't it so? Something happens you don't want. And our mind goes, oh no, why me, not this, not that. We have a lot of wine, don't we? Metaphorically and physically. We don't know what else to do but complain. Tell me one good thing that's ever come out of complaining about our life. And yet, do we not live with an incessant complainer? Yes or no? Come on, get him up. And I'm not talking about your wife, sir. I'm talking about you. Isn't there something more valuable to do? Because if I identify with the complaint, it's the same as agreeing that whatever the moment is I don't want shouldn't be there. Not supposed to happen like that. Oh God, what if you knew that no moment happens that isn't supposed to happen? Not one. Even Einstein said God doesn't play dice with the universe. Why would anybody believe that whatever it is, this is wrong, this shouldn't have happened to me, unless, here we go, unless who it happened to was so sure that it was right and so badly wanted to continue its conflicted journey through this world that all it knew to do was to resist the moment and blame the moment for the pain inherent in something that wants to live at any cost. Because that is exactly how we live. There is something in us that would rather hate than see how painful it is to hate. There is something in us that would rather resent and regret, wish the past were the different, than actually realize, the past doesn't exist apart from my constant visitation to it, where I say, I wish it wasn't like that. So we have this extraordinary gift. Not mine, it's not yours. And this extraordinary gift that we're given is our right and our capacity, given to us by the divine, by whatever word you want. So that there is no moment that takes place where I am unable, restricted from participating in a perfect moment that reveals perfectly who and what it is that went into that moment with me. And that is the only way I will ever know anything about myself, is through the moments I don't want. We love moments, don't we? How do you love being the toast of the party? Come on. Yeah, people think, great, you're unbelievable. Well, yes, I am. Thank you very much. I'm quite extraordinary. And then somebody says, you're not so hot. And then what happens? You show them how hot you can get. Transition. This is a somewhat intellectual part, but if you're feeling what I'm saying as I'm feeling it while I say it, you can't miss it. There is validation across the board for what I'm saying to you. Physics, I don't have time to go into the details, but physics, the simple, the three laws of thermodynamics. Anybody know what they are? Because I don't. Two fundamental laws govern energy. One, total energy in a closed system can neither be created nor destroyed, only transformed. This is an important idea. What physics is saying is that no energy can be created, nor can it be destroyed. That it belongs to a system in which it is all the time being transformed, renewed. I find this fascinating. You know that you and I are drinking the same water the dinosaurs did? Does that explain a few things to you, maybe? Right. The same air, everything being circulated, but in a circulation that as it goes through it is renewed. So that the blade of grass eventually becomes the deer that eats it. The deer that eats it becomes the fodder for the trees that grow out of it. The fruit that grows from the trees become the seeds that become the grass. And you can see, if you can see it at all, that everything is constantly living, dying, and being renewed, because now if we understand that, we can get rid of the word dying. We can begin to understand nothing dies, it's transformed. It's changed. It's made new, for those of you that like Christian teachings. Reborn. Literally reborn. But the blade of grass, the tree, the deer, they don't have any knowledge of what's going on. They're just doing what nature demands of them to serve nature in her greater need, to see that the world has what it needs according to her wishes. But you and I as human beings, we have the capacity to participate in that movement, to understand it so thoroughly that when it seems like, oh my God, it's a dead end, oh no, what's going to happen? That moment comes, we're not thinking, and listen to this, where is my attention in a moment I don't want? Somebody tell me, where is my attention in a moment I don't want? Come on, you're smarter than that. It's on the thing I don't want. So everything about my mind and heart is focused, razor focused on the very thing that I wish I wasn't looking at.
Right.
Is that nuts?
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring it down to earth. It's unbelievable. I sit in my room and I'm thinking, he this and they did that and I lost. And who owns my mind? Who licensed it out? Because it should be clear that something owns it and it's not me, or I wouldn't keep punishing myself by revisiting past painful moments, or in this instance, rejecting summarily any moment that doesn't go the way I want it to go. What's the answer to that?
Yeah.
Nice deep breath. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite parts. I never say the same thing in a talk twice. It's new to me, and God willing, it's new to you. Nice deep breath, everybody. It'll be good. You can live. Every moment of life, for every single creation in it, can be considered the crowning moment of the life of that creation. Every single creation is participating in an endless crowning moment of its own existence. What does that mean? Can a blade of grass grow unless it is being fed by the sun and the earth in which it's rooted? And in the relationship of those forces, can the blade of grass grow into something bigger and newer without shedding what is old and no longer useful for it as it was? Do you understand the question? This is a critical passage point in our conversation. Nothing can grow without dying. Nothing. Everything must go through, and I'm using that word, everything must go through a transformation that the thing itself can't affect. The activity of that blade of grass shedding what it was so that it can be a bigger blade of grass, or the tree shedding its leaves, and finally the fruit, all of that is the activity of something working on that creature, so that in working on that creature, it is bringing up in that creature what will serve what is acting on it, at the same time showing that creature, this is of no more use to you. The tree, when it sheds its leaf, I haven't been in Florida long enough. Do our trees shed leaves here?
Yeah.
Okay. What if a tree said, no, I'm going to hang on during the hurricane, no matter what, because I look so much better dressed like this? You would understand, wouldn't you? There's something wrong with that tree. It's a coconut tree. And yet you and I, when these moments come, and it's clearly what would seem to be, you know what, I can't live like that anymore. I can't stay in this relationship any longer. I need to do something other with my life. I need to stop fawning or lying or cheating. I need to recognize how ambitious I am, and I don't particularly care what it does to other people. I need to see that all I do is talk about myself and the past. And you would think we would know that people are bored because they're usually sleeping by the time we're done talking to them. But we don't see it. Why don't we see it? Me. It's me. You need to be interested in my story that I've told you 18,000 times, I might add. No, what we want to do is to understand that those moments where, and this is in scale, those moments where it's so obvious, God, I've been getting up every morning for the last 482 years, and for the last 482 years I've been stirring my coffee and thinking about that silly person who did this to me back then, whether it was 10 seconds ago or 100 years ago. I'm still reliving that, and you know it hurts, but the mind keeps trying to figure out a way to go back into the past. What do you when you're thinking about the past? Why am I thinking about the past? I want to fix it. It's bugging me. I don't want to be bugged. And if I can understand it completely, then I won't be bugged anymore. But you can't understand the past by thinking about it, because the past that you're thinking about is actually a construct of an unconscious nature that produced the condition you don't want to begin with. Is that too much? Hope you can hear me. On the other hand, those moments that I find myself running into what no longer works for me, I'm terrified of the end. You know, don't you? At least you should. Nothing is more frightening to human beings than the idea of death. Almost everything that we do is to try to keep death at bay. Do not go gently into that good night. Brave men rage against the dying of the light. Dylan Thomas, trying to encourage his father not to just succumb to the onset of death. We as mortals in a body who believe the body and what it has acquired is the proof of our value, fear beyond anything the end of this body, the end of thought, and the end of everything that validates us in the eyes of ourselves and others. Because we believe that's all there is. We measure ourselves that way, and we measure everyone else that way. So you would think at a certain person, well, would I be interested? Would I be willing to recognize, wait a minute, I have thought about that problem with that person. Pick a number for yourself. It's a pretty big number, isn't it? Don't you wish you had $1 for every negative thought you ever had? We'd win the lotto. I've had that 1,000 times. Why do I want it 1,001 times? When it can be shown to some extent, but you must see that that moment where that condition comes back belongs to a level of consciousness that was long ago intended to be seen as no longer useful and given up, surrendered. Seen that it can't do what it keeps tempting me to involve myself in, because that's what it does. Well, what about this? How about that? You haven't done this. You haven't thought about that. What about this situation? What if you could change that? What if you could get your brother? He's not even a body anymore, but maybe if you pray enough, you can change him. What happens when finally a man or a woman recognizes, it's true, I have a mortal fear of endings, but my mortal fear of endings belongs to this mortality. Belongs to something in me that doesn't participate in rebirth as is intended, but rather is involved in an endless reincarnation of itself, because the identity of myself is so valuable. All I care about is its continuity, and the proof that that's all I care about is I don't care what I do to myself, and I don't care what I do to anybody else, as long as I can have that feeling of myself. Pretty good. Nobody's left so far. Usually people are gone. How extraordinary would it be to realize, here comes this moment I don't want, and instead of seeing it as some kind of horde of unwanted thoughts and feelings coming at me, some moment to be avoided at all costs, what if in that moment I could actually be present enough to recognize this moment that I don't want is never going to end as long as I don't want it. Mm-hmm. This moment is never going to end as long as I don't want it. Why? Because my resistance keeps alive the self that believes it's other than the circumstance. And by resisting the circumstance, it's secretly confirming itself as being someone who doesn't want the very moment that he's giving himself to again. So the new paradigm that I am a spiritual being having a human experience is that I understand when that moment comes and it seems like it's a dead end, what it really is a moment in which I must come to the end. I must see the necessity for that to end. And I know the necessity of it ending because I've been present enough times inwardly to see how painful it is to relive it again, to wish I weren't this kind of person again, to judge my mother, my brother, my father, to sit and wish somehow or other the world were other than it is, because then I would be a great person. No. The world is the way it is, men and women, ladies and gentlemen, because you and I are the way we are. That's why the world the way it is. There isn't one person, if you ever talk to them, you say, what's wrong with the world? They'll point to everyone and everything around them as being the cause. You know that old saying, when you point your finger at one person, 4 fingers are pointing back at you? What we're talking about is an end, if we can understand it, to a relationship with something that thinks when it's a dead end, it means it's the end of me. I'm so immersed, deeply identified, caught up in hopes that this is going to work out this way, and I've dedicated my life to it, and we have, in our ignorance. Not that there's anything wrong with being a successful human being in this world. It's how we learn about ourselves. But when I think who I am depends upon a condition outside of myself, and then anything changes that condition, and then it feels like it's me who's come to an end. Who you are cannot come to an end. The end is baked into a consciousness that fears the end of itself, and it creates the very end it doesn't want. To recognize that does what? I would actually be in that moment, and I'm looking at something I've been doing 1,000 years, I keep doing this, I keep doing that, and I can see, you know what? Instead of being negative about my life or coming up with a new plan, some new purpose, maybe a change of religion, change in diet, sort of all that, it's right in front of me. Who and what I have been has gone as far as it can go. End of story. Because if I understand that who and what I have been isn't my possibility, It's what I've been and done and brought with me, this consciousness fabricated and brings it into the present moment. And that's what meets life, is what I was. We think, no, what meets the present moment is my hopes. What are your hopes other than trying to escape what you were? And so if you see that, then that brings me to almost the close of this talk. I started with the Rolling Stones. What was it? 19th nervous breakdown? So now we're going to the Beatles.
Imagine.
No, not Imagine. That's another problem. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom.
Let it be.
Let it be. Let it be. Now, that is not meant to be the kumbaya moment that it has become in this consciousness. Because how many of you are masters at telling others, get over it? This is nothing. There's a cakewalk. Look at me. I'm not bothered at all by your pain. Let it be means let it end. Not my will, but thy will be done. Let it end. Let it end here, now, with me. So that thought about what he did, that I can't wait to tell somebody about, or I can't wait to relive, I can't sleep because my mind talking to me, let it end. But the only way I'm ever going to understand what it means to let it end is I'm going to have to recognize what's ending is me. That's what letting go is. It's an inside job. That's what enlightened living is. It's understanding that you and I are created to be reborn, literally moment to moment, through an active conscious relationship with a celestial necessity that is renewing the whole of humanity, the whole of life. And it's only as we enter into the whole of that life that we begin to understand, I don't have to be afraid anymore. Yes, I can't help it. I can't escape it. That thought, this is coming. I've got to get this done. What's going to happen? If this doesn't go the way I want to, do I have to iterate those thoughts, or do we all know them? Do we all know them? Yes. Take a breath. Let it end. And when you start seeing that there is something in you that keeps picking up that piece of paper, maybe for the first time in your life you will understand the real prayer. Please, what don't I see? What don't I understand? What is it that needs to be revealed to me about myself that I have not seen, because there's something so clever in this consciousness that conceals it at every moment? Then that prayer invites the living light. That prayer enters you into an awareness with the moment where ordinarily I'm thinking to myself, God, do I have to go through this again? How many of you ever, yes or no, I have to go through this again? How about like family dinners? Why would I spend 1 minute with a human being that I don't want to spend time with? Why would I say yes to anyone when I want to say no? I'm giving you the answer because I think my identity depends upon that person and that relationship staying in place. Because even though I can't stand you, I want you to like me. I'll give you a moment to think about it. Why? Because I'm afraid. I actually am afraid of not existing. So I have to keep my existence going. But it's not I who has to keep his existence going, is it? Because I am a child of God. I am a creature of a completely different order. A human being here having this life for the purpose of discovering my relationship, a spiritual relationship. Well, I'm not going to ever discover a truly spiritual relationship. You know the saying, perfect love casts out fear? Yes or no? Hello? Perfect love casts out fear. Where is this perfect love? I'm describing it to you. It's in the endless surrender of oneself to a new understanding. And it brings me to the last song, and I'll close the talk. We're going to Simon and Garfunkel. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. I will lay me down. God, and you will. You maybe the first time, God help me. I cannot continue this. This thought has been with me for a millennia. This regret, this judgment, self-loathing, my sense of inadequacy. Fill in the blanks, because we have them all. That's another thing. It's not your consciousness, it's our consciousness. It is a single consciousness that we are the individual instruments of for very specific purposes, I might add. So that through our understanding of this relationship, we as men and women can begin to go through this fundamental change where the paradigm of our life changes because we understand we live in the wrong paradigm. Many years ago, I wrote turned out to be, I guess, the best-selling book I ever wrote, called The Secret of Letting Go. And I wrote it when I was, I guess, 30, 20. 45 years later, I'm starting to get it. This whole life is a lesson in letting go. And if it's not a lesson in letting go, it's a mistaken lesson in clinging. And you, if you wish, can begin to see where it is, something in you. Can you imagine, how many of you would like to have a friend who, whenever they come and visit you, all they do is talk to you about what's wrong with you or someone else? Anybody like friends? How many of you have friends like that? Most of us do. How long would you stay with somebody like that? Would you? Hello? See, some of you are afraid to shake your head no because you know you do it. Now what's going to happen? No. Who needs a friend like this nature? Tells me, listen, just bear this a little bit longer. Because something's going to change. You'll see. You'll do something. You'll figure it out. And then you're 20, you're 30, you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, you're 70, you're 80 years old, 90 years old. And the last thing I'll say is, it is never too late to understand that this bridge over troubled water is the understanding that is born in the awareness of yourself and your relationship in the moment. That's what new self-knowledge is. Christ called it metanoia, a new mind, a mind that turns around and sees itself instead of looking out at the world and judges itself. A new mind, that's the bridge. And you may have to stand there 1,000 times and recognize, you know what? I'm still doing what I know I need to bring to an end. But the clearer it becomes that something in you is picking up that piece of paper, something in you is complicit in the continuation of the very thing that you say you don't want, one day you're going to be sitting there and you will find, once and for all, you say, you know what? Let it be done. Watch me, I don't care what happens to me. What I care about is changing the kind of human being I am, and of myself, I cannot change myself. But I can be changed by being given the insight into this consciousness. And in that insight, I am given the courage, I am given the understanding, and ultimately the bridge over which these troubled waters called our life constantly are rolling. That's all for this talk. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to have a dialogue. If you want to stay and engage in a conversation with me, I'd be delighted to have you stay. Thank you for coming. So what will happen is I will hear your question. I will repeat it so everybody joining us can hear it, and then I'll answer it as succinctly as I can. Please, sir. Yes.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here, first off. But so how do you know, you talked at length here about letting it go.
Yes, sir.
And I get the concept, but how do you know whether you're really letting it go or you just stuffing the feeling? On the rock or am I water?
The gentleman's asking, I'm very interested. First, he's grateful for the material, and he wants to know, how do I know when I've really let go of something? When it no longer troubles you. If it still troubles you, it has been repressed. It's been pushed down. And that's why it keeps coming up. It hasn't been resolved. I have an expression that I like. This might help you. We repeat certain painful relationships not because it's inherent that we repeat them, but because we have unfinished business in that moment. Everybody, though we don't particularly like this idea, as far as I'm concerned, you will never meet a person who isn't sent from cosmic casting just so that they can help you discover the truth about yourself. Every human being, if what I've said is true, and you have to find this out, is there anything, all right, you go into nature. Is there anything in nature that you can see and have the experience of that isn't already a part of the consciousness experiencing it? In other words, I don't have what I call new experiences. I experience myself newly. Please, can you see it? Can anybody see it? That means now I'm not in nature. I'm talking to this lady or this gentleman, or somebody's come up and they don't like what I said and they're going to challenge and want to fight about something. That moment, if I actually believe that who I am depends upon that person approving of me or liking me, first, I'm going to change everything I do to make sure that I get that approval. And one day when I don't want that anymore, I'm going to have to live with what happens inside of me when I don't do what I'm expected to do. So if I'm free, if I've let go, for instance, of the need to be approved of people, how many of you know you have a need to be approved of people? Come on. Well, one day, and by the way, sorry. Do you know that you can't be kind to a human being whose approval you want? It's impossible. You want their approval, you're changing your behavior for that person. That's all we know to do. So I actually have an ambition in my relationships with people that I don't know about. And if I have an ambition or a motive with you, can I be a truly genuine person with you if I have a motive? Can I? It's impossible. So I know I've let go when here comes somebody and I can feel their state, I can see something about them, and I start to feel resistance, yes or no? And in the moment where the resistance would ordinarily turn into something in me insisting they see my life the way I want them to, I catch it and it comes to an end. And then I'm in this great, beautiful, unknown moment where I don't know who to be, but who I am is watching everything so closely that I'm learning from an experience the other person won't learn a thing from. You can be in every relationship that you have and leave that relationship a wiser human being, unlike the person who's trying to challenge or command you, a sadder person. That's how you know you've let go. When you are when you're not the same person. What's your name? No.
Sorry?
What's your name?
Malcolm.
Malcolm. One day, Malcolm, if he is interested, he'll be involved in something and Malcolm will get ready to launch, or whatever Malcolm does. and you'll wait a minute, Malcolm's getting ready to launch. DEFCON 4. No. Not because I want to be a good person, but because I'm present enough to the pain that's pushing me. And if I'm present enough to the pain that's pushing me to prove myself, then I realize it's pain that's trying to prove itself. Then I let go to whatever extent I can. This is not McDonald's drive-through Happy Meal. This is dedicated interior work, what is required of an individual, literally to agree to get into a crucible, a crucifixion if you want, and it is. All I know is what I want, all I want is what I need, and here suddenly I see that's not I, and it's still there and it's still pushing, and I have to agree to lay me down. Not because I'm a spiritual person. I lay me down because that's all there is left for me to do. And in that moment, I have I not, agreed to take on the will of something that will not hurt itself and will not let me hurt myself. That's how I know when I've let go. And don't think in terms of, I let go, because that doesn't work like that, right? No, just a glimpse at a time. A little, this is the end, just a little end at a time, that's all. So that with each one of those things, you become a little more conscious of the nature that wants to continue itself. That's it. And then you bear that. And as you bear that, you become wiser. And the more wise you become, the more willing you are to experiment with letting that light, with that understanding help you. Okay? In the room, or do we have?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. As soon as I do whatever this is, what am I doing?
Go to your messages.
Go to Kate Rafto?
That's me.
Okay. This is the first time we've tried a live meeting with streaming, and in case it's not clear, we have no idea what we're doing. So this is from a gentleman. He says, your talk reminded me of when Captain Kirk said in protest of looking at his past pain and guilt more honestly in Star Trek V, I don't want my pain taken away. I need my pain. He said that pain and guilt were what made him who he is. This is hard-hitting, but it's true. If I live with fear, and how many of you can admit that you live with fear? If I live with fear, and I let fear tell me who I am and what to do, who is my God? Fear. But fear as my God never tells me, I'm fear and I'm your God. Fear says, look, here's salvation. Here's rescue. Get that person to be what you need them to be. Get that straightened out. Then, in that temptation, I'm identified with a becoming something, and I'm no longer actually looking into the face of what I'm living with, which is that fear. You see that? Who would serve that? We don't know we do it. Hello? Yes, please. What's your name?
Peggy,
Hi, Peggy.
my question is, why do you do this?
Oh, I can't live without this. This is my life. Actually, since I was a boy.
Really?
If you, look, this is, you know the expression autographs and sunglasses? That's not this. But each time that you have that momentary glimpse, and you can see it coming. There was a joke. I wasn't able to get everything on. You know the expression, you see the light at the end of the tunnel? And you know the joke that it's really not a light, it's a train coming your direction? That's more the case than not. And so how many times do I go running after that light and find myself with, train tracks over me? And then one day I say, you know what? I have so much vested in this or him or that or so much vested, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Fear always has a reason to suffer. Anxiety always has a cause behind why you must rush. The sense of self-inadequacy, of being an inadequate human being, always has what needs to be done so you can feel better about yourself or how you can pay off other people to approve of you. It's always there in this divided mind. And as you wake up, truly become in that moment, and let me make that clear, enlightenment is not a static state. Enlightenment is a relationship with the light. That's what enlightenment is. And that light never stops revealing that which that light dwells in that darkness doesn't know it, and it constantly is revealing, and our part is to be present enough to recognize that and let that be done. That's enlightenment. So, short answer, it is a very tough row to hoe. But on the other hand, it's the only garden to work in. And the clearer that becomes to you, the more you are willing to go through those difficult patches. You know, you go out, how many of you like to garden? My wife's an avid gardener. She has a green head. She's so good. You can't just throw down seed. The ground has to be cultivated. And after it's cultivated, it has to be weeded. And after it's weeded, then it can be sown. And after it's sown, it has to be guarded. And it has to be watched. And then it has to be cultivated. And that's what if I told you that is an unceasing process in our life as a spiritual being? So that there's times when you reap, and then there's times when you're sorry, when you sow. And it's a single movement. I'm so glad that some of you came back, because there were quite a few people here that really didn't like what I was saying. But you can see certain things. Is there questions? Because I just keep going.
There are, yeah.
Okay.
You want another one?
No, I want another one, yeah. So that's the answer. I can't help myself. Sir.
Sir, thank you for coming here. More than 25 years ago, I read 3 of your books, Secrets of Letting Go, Freedom from the Ties That Bind, and The Secrets of Praying. And I'm grateful for these 3 books, among many other books at the time I read them. Here is one thing that I have had experience after applying the spiritual and metaphysical force in your books,
Yes.
teaching to my direction of life. The first, this reading and learning these concepts come with a cost, because when you are letting it go, which means you are elevating yourself to a certain level, at the same time people around you may go away, and it's going to be cost for them that you are elevating yourself from that position.
Of course.
So you have to be brave enough to understand that it is going to be costly. It is not an easy process. It's going to come to your heart and mind and spirit. You are going to feel free. It didn't work that way.
Yes, sir.
All right. Second thing, before reading these books, life and people were complicated for me. And after reading these books, I became more complicated for life and people. Well, what it means, because knowing this direction of elevating yourself to a higher level, it also gives you a certain power that you believe in certain direction of truth. Because of your new strength and your powerful position, you develop a belief system which you want to project upon life. While it doesn't make you actually an easy person, tolerable person, I became maybe a certain degree more intolerable for many things because I do see certain metaphysical truths.
And you have seen this.
Yes, sir.
Which means the whole journey was worthwhile.
Yes, sir.
I think, just to clarify,
One more thing I'll finish.
ever so quickly, please. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. That in the end, you want to see that you want to project yourself to life because you understand important moral and immoral concept which gives meaning to your life experience, and it doesn't make you an easier person. However, it makes your pain a joyful process instead of suffering.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
There's no way I can repeat all that.
I can actually hear most of
They
it.
can hear, but to the point, and I think it's so valuable. I'll just summarize it.
Good.
When you begin to wake up a little bit, the part of the process is first thinking that you have awakened. Because you have new ideas, you have a way to look at life, you want others to see life the way you do. And as the gentleman said, you become intolerable because of your spirituality. And that's kind of a what do they call that? It's antithetical, isn't it, But on the other hand, and I speak very personally about this and with gratitude that I wouldn't even know how to put into words. at a certain point, you see that the only thing that is wrong with the whole world is what you have been and done. And if there's anything good in you at all, you didn't do it. And you could never take credit for it. You would never call it your power. You would never say I to any part of what is kind and compassionate. It would never happen to you, because part of your awakening is you being put into the actual relationship that you have with the divine. And then you see, Christ himself said it, why do you call me good? No one's good. Of myself I have no power. Now if Christ had no power, what does that make me? And yet, last point, I was invited to give as a VIP to a guru's fest. Now I knew I didn't belong there, not in any stretch of the imagination, because everybody's about my power and this, that, and the abundance, and you're going to get this, and you're beautiful, and God loves you, I can help you. That's basically the root of all nonsensical teachings today. So we were up there, 5 of us on a dais with a group of poor people. They're poor because of how much money they spent to go hear people tell them all this, I almost said a bad word, stuff. And so they came to me, and I was dreading the moment, with God as my witness, dreading it, because I knew it was going to happen. You know, I want to be able to talk to people about these ideas. I would love people to know the truth that they themselves have to discover. And they said, well, Guy, what's your power? And I took a deep breath and I said, well, I have absolutely no power of my own. None. Then you see the audience like that. Because everybody, your power is this, I have the power of abundance, I have the power of changing, I have the power of fixing, all that. And I don't have power. What a beautiful thing it is to realize you don't need power. That's the illusion of this world. I need power. Why do I need power in this world? So I can protect myself. That's why I need power, so I can pursue and gain possession. That's why I need power. But what if the model that we talked about is the true model? That we are, in fact, not human beings in search of a spiritual experience, but rather we are spiritual beings immersed in a human experience. Well, if I'm a spiritual being, what power is the world going to give me? And by the way, how painful it is to believe that you have power, because then you got to keep proving it. It's a nightmare. Okay, Kate.
Okay, here's a question from Jill.
Okay, on the phone thing? There it
We
is.
have about 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay,
So-
we're good. So this is from an online student. I made a hard decision this week to fire an employee. It was something I needed to do, a long time coming. After I did it, the next day my mind said, are you sure it was the right decision? How many of you know that one? Yeah. I thought about you saying the opposites, and here they were. I was seeing it. Am I on the right track? It's very hard to see and watch and not get carried away by my own thoughts. Isn't that true? What if, again, I need to make a decision. It's not an easy one. And so I vacillate back and forth between what I will or what I won't do. At some point, let's say I choose the red door. I no more walk up to the red door than I think to myself, that black door might have been a better door for me to go through. And then so I do everything in half measures. When I say, this is the end, write this down if you have anything to write with. Learn to do what is in your power and refuse to do what is not. Learn to do what is in your power and refuse to do what is not. It is not in my power to change the world by me resisting or regretting something, but it is in my power to use that part of myself that's forever trying to figure out how to make an adjustment so that my life can keep going the way I imagine it should go. Make a decision. End of story. This is what is this is God willing that you make the decision. That's it. No more. Watch that. This is what Jill's asking. Because when you can start seeing this, you can start understanding my decisions have always been predicated on trying to find something that when I make that decision, I'm going to be the end of my pain. Have you ever thought you were going to make a decision, bring an end to your pain? Yes or no?
Yes.
And did it? No. You know the decision that brings an end to the pain? Is you seeing that consciousness, this mind, has come to the end of itself. It is of no more use for me to listen to my own mind tell me I made a mistake. Let me see it. Seeing is everything. Seeing is everything. The more clearly you see, the more clear your action. The more clear your action, the more evident it is this lack of clarity that's forever trying to figure out who to be in that moment. You can do that. And so, Jill, yes, the answer is you're on the right track. Now you're learning something about that mind. I wanted to make a decision. My mind won't leave me alone. Whose mind is, who owns your mind? Oh, careful, careful, careful. Who owns your mind? Who?
God.
Well, why isn't he running a better show for you?
You're right.
Exactly. So I can say all day long that God owns my mind, but when the moment comes, it isn't God that owns my mind. What owns my mind is what I give my mind to, hoping to save myself from something that's imagined to begin with.
But he gives us choices.
The divine gives us the light by which to see the choices we are making cannot serve us. And when we finally give that up, we begin to serve what is true and right for ourselves. And not until then. Otherwise, we're in imagination. And more here?
Yeah, we have some more.
Okay.
Is there anyone in the room?
Anybody in the room? Any hands? Nope.
All right, here comes a question from Larry.
Here comes a question. Technology. I don't know how long it was ago. I swear to God, I was living in Ojai, California, and I was about to write my first book. And I looked around and I said, I'll die before I try one of those stupid computers. That's the God's honest truth. Now, look at this, saddled with technology, yeah. So Larry writes, it's kind of scary. I'm assuming he's talking about what we just talked about. Because I realize that my hurtful thoughts of the past reoccur because the construct of the image of myself says that should not have happened according to the image that I'm looking at. Further, I'm afraid to let go because I'm afraid of being my new self. I'm afraid of being born again. Is this part of self-dying or dying to self? One day you would no more say, I'm afraid of something, than you would jump off of a bridge. He's saying, I am fear. If you say, I'm afraid, you're saying, I am fear, because it is fear that's telling you what to be afraid of. God did not make a fearful spirit. That is not religion. That is a fact that you can validate for yourself by seeing, as Larry's saying, back to Larry, I'm afraid to let go. Who's afraid to let go? We can all understand what Larry's saying, can't we? I'm afraid to let go. Who is afraid to let go? Is it Larry that's afraid to let go? Or is it something in Larry brought forward in his consciousness that believes if he should give this up or change that, his life's going to go to hell in a handbasket? And may I submit to the audience that our life is already gone to hell in a handbasket because we live with fear as our guide. So all that's required, I have to be very careful when I make broad statements. What's required is to see that. Larry, the next time that you start to think about something that you need to do or want to let go of, don't think to yourself about coming to an end of that. Stay in the beginning, man. Stay right where the moment is and watch how something in you is projecting every possible negative outcome and telling you that if you go down that road, it's curtains. No, Larry, it's curtains sitting there listening to what is negative tell you how to have a good life. That's what's curtains for you. Yes, ma'am.
Could you really sum it up and say that it's taking responsibility for how you're feeling in also, the thing is about acting instead of reacting to somebody else. Is that kind of what?
Yes, she said, could you sum this up by saying it's taking responsibility? And at one level, we can absolutely say it's taking responsibility at one level. But to look at it closely, so many of us say, well, I'm taking responsibility for this. And there's now a me that believes it's other than the thing it's dealing with. What we're interested in is seeing that real responsibility, in the true sense of the word, do you know what the word response means? I am responding.
It means like the same thing.
Yes, responsibility is I am responding. To what am I responding? An image of myself who should be responsible? Or am I responding to the moment that's showing me I'm afraid of not being responsible, or this is what responsibility means? That's another thing. Good question. What if I had I almost said another word. What if I had no idea whatsoever what it meant to be responsible? Please just think for a moment. Don't think, well, no, what's going to happen if I'm not responsible? What do you mean, what's going to happen if I'm not responsible? Look at the world. What if responsibility, the ability to respond to the impression in the moment, produces the action that is harmless? That's responsibility. Then I cannot be the man or woman who, thinking I'm responsible, hurts myself or anyone else through my action. On the other hand, much like this gentleman was saying, sometimes if I am really responsible, I'm going to have to say and do things that no one is going to like. I've always said yes to people when I want to say no. I say no when I want to say yes. So real responsibility is my awareness in that moment of this part of myself juggling everything. How many of you are master jugglers? You know what that is, yeah. It's, juggle. Why? Because if I can keep the pins in the air long enough and the plate spinning, then I'm going to come out a successful clown. I don't know why I got to that conclusion. I just did. So, responsibility. Let my first responsibility be to respond inwardly to what I'm being shown about this nature. Then, in that light, I will know what is true, what is not, what is dark, what is light. I'll know beyond the shadow of a doubt. Does that help a little bit? Good.
What would you like to do? We have one. I could do another question from Denise.
Let's do one more question and then we'll call
Wrap
it
up, and I can wrap it. I can do
call
the
it an
closing
afternoon.
announcements. Yeah.
This is from Denise. What if the recall of past pains has become so fuzzy with age, so it has become hard or impossible to hold these remnants from the past in awareness or clarity? I sense that it's not real letting go, so should I be working to dredge them up to try to really see the lessons and let go? It's like, what are you talking about? But see, look, this is beautiful. You know, it's somewhere in the New Testament. I think it was Nicodemus. One of the people said to Christ, so you're saying that to be reborn, I'm actually going to go back in my mother's womb and come out again? Because literally, that's all we understand is literally. In this instance, we're not talking about trying to dredge stuff up. I'm the bottom of the ocean. Everything comes up all the time without any effort at all. But she's thinking to herself, you know, some of this stuff is fuzzy. I get triggered, but it's fuzzy. Please, Denise. You know, is it the Denise? Yeah. So I know this particular student. You're thinking in terms of you and the past, of you and the person, you and the predicament. There is no predicament apart from you. There is no person apart from your pain that you have with them. All of that is in relationship. You want to take home a very serious, deep thought? There is no self outside of relationship. No self exists outside of relationship. Look at yourself. How do you know you exist? Through thought, through sensation. Everything is relationship. So whatever it is that I am in relationship with is part and parcel with what? with me discovering something about myself. Because how can I be in relationship with anything and know it unless it's already a part of myself? It's part of me. Your past, the pain in it, the people, the problems, they are not outside of you for you to dredge up. They're coming up. And they're coming up because they have gone with you through time in such a way that you don't know how else to relate to the moment other than through dredging that up. And it's not you dredging. Have we made that much clear? It's not you dredging it up. It is this mind that dredges up something funky and then goes, I want to be free of that. How can the mind that dredges up funkiness be free of the funkiness it dredges up? And on that high note, I will say, good afternoon.
All right, thanks for joining us today, everyone. And we had planned to put out little bookmarks on your seats ahead of time that have just a little reminder about our foundation and a website that you can go to, but we forgot. So, great, Patricia has them on the back table. You can grab one on the way out. I encourage you to, Guy actually gives these talks from our foundation in Oregon, like he said, 2 or 3 times a week. And all of it's live streamed, so you can tune in anytime for our Sunday or Wednesday classes, and that schedule is on those bookmarks. So do pick one up, and check out our website. We have so much material on the website, it's crazy. You can spend months just perusing it. So go to guyfinley.org, and you'll also, you'll be able to sign up for a newsletter, our email newsletter, and that's the best way to stay in touch with what we're doing here and what our plans are, you know, for the future, with Guy being here in Florida more often. So just stay connected with us and ask any questions as they come up. I think that's it. So thanks again, and we'll see you when we see you.
Thanks, everybody.